Okay, I think we'll get going here today. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming to this today's virtual farm tour. I get the pleasure of introducing the host for today. My name's Kevin Putnam. I am a dairy specialist in New York and New England for DuPont Pioneer. And we were looking for people to do a talk today. And first that came to the list was Dirk for us here. So I want to just give you a little background on why we chose Dirk to come out here today and do this for you guys. So just four things that really popped in my head. One of the things was very progressive. So some of the things he's going to talk about today is some of the stuff he does around his forages, yield mapping, some other stuff there. Adaptive. So in Dirk's area, he'll show you a little bit about some of the challenges he has with some environmental issues with manure and some of the things that he's done crisis management-wise to combat some of that stuff. Next is he's very innovative. Dirk's part of a group that just built their own milk plant, and he's going to talk about that a little bit too. And the first reason that really popped in my head as far as why to choose Dirk was, obviously he's a loyal Pioneer customer, but we do a lot together. And for me personally, Dirk is a person that will challenge you. He's always looking for, questions are popping into his head, looking for answers, looking for different ways to do things. And that I really respect that because it helps me learn a little bit more too if somebody challenges you. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce Dirk Young from Twin Birch.
I need that. Well, Kevin's been telling me for 3 days he's going to roast me, but that was a pretty nice roast, I'd say. I want to thank everybody for showing up. It's really an honor for us to be here and represent our farm at the World Dairy Expo. I've always wanted to come here, and this way I got Pioneer to pay my way here. It's the first time I've ever been here. It's kind of nice. This is a picture of our front of our dairy, and I just wanted to point out this, if I can get this thing right here. We bought that at an auction my wife and I were at, and I didn't know what it was, but it had pictures of cows on it. I thought it looked kind of neat, make a nice flower pot. Well, it's a cow rendering pot, and so we show all of our heifers when they're coming in. If they don't want to go in there, they got to do well in the barn. So today, if I can make this thing work, we're going to go over the history, our operation, environmental challenges, water, air, neighbors, which are environmental and just neighbors sometimes. Forage management would cover BMR, yield monitoring, hay in a day, 20-inch rows. Then Cayuga Marketing Group, which is a farmer-owned marketing buying group that's morphing into a milk manufacturing entity. Some of the future for the farm, and then my favorite part at the end is questions and answers. So my dad lived in a valley not too far, 30 miles, 35 miles from where we are right now. He was one of 6 brothers, and the valley was kind of small, and there was no place for him to purchase a farm. He was on a rented 30-cow farm, and he looked for farms for quite a few years, and he was the first one of his brothers to move out of that valley and bought this farm in 1960 at auction. And he paid $40,000 for the farm. It's 270 acres, and that got us our start where we are now. My grandfather was in Florida when he bought it, and when he got back from Florida, he came up and looked at the farm and thought my dad had gone completely nuts. He spun around, left, never returned. Lived about 4 or 5 more years, but he never came back. So that propelled my dad to not fail, because he figured his dad thought he was going to fail, so that propelled my dad to not to fail. And he reminds me quite often, like, I think I just bought a pickup truck, and that cost more than the farm did. So he reminds me every time you spend more than $40,000, that's more than I paid for the farm. So today, our mission statement drives our farm. We want to be environmentally friendly, we want to treat animals responsibly, and we want to create a profession we're proud to be a part of. And we've lived by this mission statement for quite a few years. The operation, I became an owner in 1981 after I was an indentured servant for probably about 10 years, and took quite a lot of persuasion and threatening to leave, but we formed a corporation, and I became an owner, you know, started working into the business. So I'd encourage any of you young guys here not to give up on your parents. They still hope for them, and to keep pushing, push hard. So in 1990 was a pretty landmark event for our farm. We went from milking in 2 red barns conventionally to a parlor. We consolidated 2 conventional type barns, built a parlor, double 12, expandable to 18, with 500 cows. So we basically doubled the cows we had and changed the whole way of farming. Went from making a lot of hay to making no hay and bunks and TMR, and did the whole thing. And in 98, we built a second cow barn, doubled in the herd again. At that time, we had to build well, that's later. So, and then from that point from 98 till present day, we've grown at about 8% per year. It's just kind of steady growth. So today, the operation consists of about 2,500 acres. We own 1,800 acres of it. We rent another 700. We grow about 1,400 acres of corn, 850 acres of alfalfa, 200 acres of wheat still that we use for rotation. It gives us a place to plant a nice cover crop after we take corn off, take the wheat off in the summer, and we gives us a place to put some manure, and then we do all of our alfalfa in the summer after the wheat. We have about 2,500 head of cattle. There's about 1,300 mature cows. We're averaging a little over 30,000 pounds of milk, 1,100 pounds of fat, and 920 pounds of protein. And we're still kind of oops, that's the wrong way I want to go. I just wanted to show you, that's the original home farm, and our shop's still there, and we have a little grain system. My wife and I live up here, and the heifer barn is here, and that's Skaneateles Lake right there. So let's try one more time. So under environmental challenges, we live halfway between Skaneateles Lake and Owasco Lake. 70% of our farm is in the Owasco Lake watershed. Skaneateles Lake provides this water for the city of Syracuse, which you may have heard of. They have a basketball team there that sometimes can be good and sometimes can't be. But there's 75 million gallons of water that goes to the city by gravity every day, and it's all unfiltered water. And so they have it's a real pristine lake. It always has been. They've had a strong protection program for over 100 years there. Owasco Lake provides water for about 75,000 people. That's a filtered water source. It's not as good a lake, has a bigger watershed, but it's still, they're very, very concerned. Skaneateles Lake has a lot of really expensive homes along the way, and we live just downwind from those homes. And so when we expanded the second time, we had to build a manure storage because we didn't really have enough spreadable land, and it was getting, more pressure was getting on winter spreading. We decided to build a remote storage because we wanted to not have any more odor in where our barns, where our cattle were. So at that time, we looked around and thought, and we made a commitment to separation so we could pump it, and we located our manure storage right up there, which is in the middle of, you can't really see the roads, but the roads are here. Nobody can see it. Nobody can smell it. Nobody knows it's there. We buried a pipeline up to it, and we pumped the manure. We separated manure and pumped the manure up there every day. So we've been using separated solids for bedding since 1998. And we started out, they weren't digested. And we had good luck with undigested manure solids. Since that time, we've added to the pipeline. We used to distribute manure from the pipeline. We put a pump, an irrigation pump on the pond and distribute it to spreaders. Since that time, we've gotten into a drag hose, so we can cover about 2,200 of our 2,500 acres with a drag hose from this system. We never have to, the advantages of that, we have small roads, we never have to have heavy equipment on the roads. It's cost effective, very cost effective, and our neighbors really don't know when we're spreading. So that's been a real win. Some of our neighbors have a lot of time, free time on their hands, and they're well heeled, and they're very, very much think they know your business more than you do. So it's been really good to be kind of almost ahead of them in some respects.
Do you own all that land where your pipeline is?
Yes, we're lucky to accumulate parcels over the years, and when we get very aggressive with land that touches us comes for sale. That's the wrong button. So when we built storage, we'd had a neighbor that had a storage that had a very poor reputation. It smelled terribly. He didn't manage it very well, and the neighbors just didn't want to hear about having a manure storage. And so when we built our first manure storage, and it does smell more than fresh manure, different, we started looking at ways to reduce that odor. And at that time, quite honestly, the drag hose technology hadn't been developed, or at least hadn't come to New York yet. And we looked around for ways to reduce odor, and we landed on trying to put an anaerobic digester in. I would say that we were probably about 10 years too early putting that in. We had quite a few challenges with it. We've had microturbines we had a poor designer to begin with. We chose a poor designer, which was our fault. And we had microturbines to begin with, which were supposed to run on bad biogas, hydrogen sulfide, and that turned out not to be true. And so we struggled for the first 8-10 years with it. We eventually learned how to build a digester. I re-engineered it. We now have an engine set in, and we also have a gas scrubber. And so I'm quite happy with the thing, actually. It works pretty good, and we produce enough electricity for our home farm plus all the buildings around there that have different meters. So we're netting zero on it. But, you know, they're not for everybody. They take somebody for a real passion for a digester, because there's things that crop up with them that you just don't. You really got to have a sense of wonderment and be able to figure things out on them, I guess. So we have had some problems. In 1997, that manure pipe I told you going up the pond broke. We had 7,000. It broke after we'd pumped, and I think I understand what happened now, but you know, you learn things as you go along the way, and you try to make it better. But we had about 7,000 gallons of manure that got directly into the creek, and that was going to Owasco Lake. So the moral of my story is, if you have a problem, you need to be as active as you can on it. We blocked the stream off. We started pumping out of it. One of the problems that we had was that we knew we had to call DEC, but we didn't know the right numbers to call. So we developed an SOP of the right numbers, and that's one of the things, you know, the first thing you have to do is cut off the source. Of course, that's pretty obvious. You know, contain anything that you need to, and then you got to call the people that you need to call. You know, and we've got 911 on here, but unless I wouldn't recommend calling 911 if your fire department's like ours. That's the last people you want there. But you need to call the DEC, and at least in our state, you have to call the DEC. You've probably got different words for it, but that's the Department of Environmental Conservation. You know, we have our local county soil water people there, and because the water was going into a second county, we needed to have 2 county soil water conservation people there. and continue addressing the spill. And I found that, you know, the last thing that most farmers want to do is call the DEC or the Department of Environmental Conservation, but they were very helpful to work with. You know, I was worried about blocking off the creek, but they were all good with that. And, you know, to get the manure out, they were very good to work with. We did get a fine. It was a small fine, and we were cited, but it wasn't anything that was too bad. So I guess I wouldn't try to cover it up unless you live in the boondocks. We live right downstream from a golf course. In fact, the superintendent of the golf course notified me of the manure spill. So it was hard. It's kind of hard to cover that up. So we're going to do forage management now. So a couple years ago, we went to 20-inch rows with our corn planter. That's one of the first fields we planted with that I haven't taken a picture of. But, you know, the ideal was to try to, and I'm not sure if it's going to work out or not, but we're spreading our nutrients out over the field. We wanted to have closer rows. We think more yield's going to come from more population, and it'll be better for nutrient removal. And I think there's going to be a little erosion advantage with 20-inch rows. There is some challenges as far as post-weed control. We apply herbicide with the planter, but we usually end up with about 10 or 20%. It seems to be getting worse every year of where we have to go back post-emergence and get some breakthrough weeds. Like I said before, we do use wheat for a cover crop. Gives us a great place to spread manure in the summertime, and with a digester we can do that fairly benignly. It doesn't smell too bad. And we like being able to fall seed the alfalfa, get started. We don't have to use any weed control. We have more time to do it then. In the spring we're busy putting manure out and planting corn, so it's kind of a pain to put manure in. About 6 years ago, we went to a wide swath hay in a day, or I like to call it hay in 24 hours because you don't actually make a lot of hay in the same day. But you can, by laying the alfalfa out flat, it will dry a lot quicker. We have very unpredictable weather in New York and very poor weather most of the time. So it gives us shorter windows to get the hay off with. And it also helps us get the lower dry matters that we're wanting to. We used to get more, we made more haylage wetter than we should have. You know, we're shooting for 40–45% dry matter, and that really has helped us do that. We've also gone away from Tom Kelser and I was growing up thinking he had to condition hay, you know, to get it to dry. But extension person in our state did quite a lot of work with no conditioning, and he believes it'll get down to 45% dry matter just as fast without conditioning as it will. And we had the opportunity one year when we bought this triple mower. We had conditioning on the front and no conditioning on the wings, so we had side by side tests, and it did actually dry faster not conditioning down to this magic number that you want, and it stays there a little longer when it's not conditioned. It also allows moisture, if you do get a rain, the moisture tends to go off the plant better and won't soak into the plant if it's broken. So I'm a real proponent of not conditioning hay. Helps with leaf loss, makes the mowers lighter, less power to run. That's been a real win for us. You know, the other thing they say that if you less time you've got that plant out there drying and oxygenating or whatever it does, you'll save sugars. And I think we've between getting a better dry matter and a shorter harvest window, I think we've improved our alfalfa quite a lot with this. So we started yield monitoring first with a combine back in '96, I think. And we found out really quick that that was a real good tool to separate hybrids. I mean, you got a field half planted with one hybrid and another hybrid, and you know real quick which one's working for you, which one's not. It may not be, the total may not be exactly right, but the comparison is, you know, right on. And so we went to yield monitoring with a chopper as soon as it was available. Ironically, the biggest thing I think is that we know what our moistures are when we're doing it. We don't have to wait a half an hour to have a coster dry down our forages to know what the moisture is. So we're getting forages in our bunk that are drier, more what we want, rather than having, we tended to be too wet before. You know, it's also, you look at, it's good to adjust, to look at different practices, different tillage practices, different, different populations. When we went to narrow rows, we did a lot of split planter runs, would run 38,000 on one side and 44,000 on another side, or different populations. And when you're harvesting, you can see the results, and you can also see the constituents, you know, what it's doing to forage quality. So that's been, now not only with yield with the forage, but you're able to know what the constituents are. So, you know, brand X might have a great huge yielder, but it might be just wood chips, you know, and not do you any good in the tank. And so that's been a big deal for us. Okay. So we tried Bmr Corn 5 years ago or so, and at that time we got tremendous yield loss from it. I felt a yield drag, and it really, when you plant Bmr corn, it's going to go into the bunk, and we grow about 2/3 of our corn for silage and 1/3 for grain. And depending on the year, if it's a dry year, we're going to need more. If it's a wet year, we're going to need less. The Bmr didn't give me that flexibility. It caused me to have another bunk to separate it out, which meant for more exposure. So we've decided to go, and we've been exclusively with 11 CFT, and we think that we're able to compete with our neighbors with better yielding silage and still have high forage diets for our cows and do all the other things we want to, and it gives us a lot more flexibility, I think. You know, Kevin's done some work. One of the things that Kevin's done for us, I asked him the question, because we tended to split bunks, and with BMR you're going to split another bunk. And a lot of the research shows that you're going to get a lot of loss when you do that. And the first part of what we've seen is that we're not getting that much loss with a shaved bunk and it's split, but we still got some more work to do. The results we don't believe the results yet, I guess, is what I would say. Well, I just want to go back to one more thing. Pioneer's got a really good, I think that bottom was inoculant dosing. Pioneer doser hooks to our yield monitor, so it puts the right amount of product on our forage, which just cost me a lot of money, because we used to put less, I think, than we needed to. Now we're putting, at least we're getting the rate on right. That's been a big help. So I'm a member of Cuga Marketing. It was started in the 80s by 8 farmers. I was not one of them that started it. My cousin was one of them that started it. But we started out marketing our milk together in a joint fashion. And then in the 90s, we started buying our supplies together. You know, we didn't necessarily buy commodities together, but we did some commodities, but we did, like tit dip, we made a big impact on that. Copper sulfate, we bought in trailer loads of that before, and we've done a lot of stuff like that. We did that for a few years, then we partnered with Dairy Lee and formed Eagle Buying Group, which is now morphed into DFA Farm Supplies. We sold out our share a year ago or so. You know, we also partnered with a feed mill in our area that was owned by a large turkey farm, and all of our feed is toll milled through this mill, and that's been a really good arrangement for both us and the turkey mill, and the feed mill, I would say. In 2007, we bought Sidec, which is a dairy equipment company, provides service, installations, all that kind of stuff. And then about 10 years ago, we started to get real serious about looking for ways to market our milk, to vertically integrate, or whatever you want to say, have more control over our destiny. And we worked for a long time, worked very hard for a long time. And about two years ago, we did a fundraise and started our milk plant. We ended up on a milk. We looked for specialty products. We looked for cheese. We looked at a lot of different things. You know, cheese takes a huge mega plant. Specialty products, we just don't make enough milk to burn up that, or we make more milk than we need to burn up that amount of milk. And so we ended up on we partnered with a French company called Ingredia, who is a world leader in dairy powders, MPIs, and protein drinks for your protein drinks, baby formulas, different things like that. And we ended up with this milk plant, which actually, amazingly enough, looks quite a lot like that in a real photo right now. We're commissioning it right now. We're just about through commissioning it right now, and we should be fully online within the next week or two. So that's been it's been a big step for us, and it's a big learning curve, and we're kind of all anxious right now. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. So this is, I got to tell you, about 5-10 years ago or so, I got kind of burned out. I was the man, you know, I did a lot of the stuff. And I got to an age or a mindset or something where I just couldn't do all that anymore. And so we looked at different ways to bring different people in. My son was part of the business for a little while, and he found out he didn't really want to, farming was not his passion, and left that. So we brought in, what we decided to do after quite a lot of work is bring in young people that want to grow and develop and take over as interest partners. And we'll get them in, get some experience with them, find out they've got the right stuff to do what we want to do, and then we'll give them a percentage of the profits, actually the balance sheet growth for the year. And so they put that into an account, and so we pay them a guaranteed wage so they get money to live on, but they've got this account that's growing equity all the time. And that's worked really well. We've gotten, I've now got 3 partners, and you know, they're harvesting corn right now, and it's so far it's worked out really well. Beyond that, then we've looked a little further, and I've pushed hard all my life to own things, to own the farm. But when you get really looking at it, what I really wanted was control of the farm. And, you know, we went through a whole bunch of estate planning with my parents, and now they want to estate plan me. And it's just a never-ending struggle to keep it all planned. So what we've done is set up a dynasty trust where we're going to put the farm in trust, and it's going to stay in trust. And these young guys are never really they're going to own equity, but they're never really going to own the farm. And I'm going to require them to put 50% of the profits back into the farm every year. Now they can keep 50% for themselves if they want. So we can perpetuate the farm, and their job in 20 or 30 years will be find the next generation to take over it. So it's a way to keep it a farm. It's just different families. It's not the same. It doesn't have to be to be a same family farm. So I want to say I have enjoyed sharing, you know, some of the highlights of our farm, some of the history of our farm. Hope some of you guys can take back what I've learned from it. I would like to encourage everybody to take a little time for yourselves and enjoy life, because it's pretty short. We're a long time dead. And one thing's that I was brought up thinking I hated horses. My parents don't like horses. My daughter, when she was 12 years old, begged and screamed, and we ended up buying her a horse, and then I got into horses, and my wife got into horses. It's one thing my wife and I like to do alone, or together, I should say. I almost got through this thing without a major stumble. So we've got Haflinger horses from Austria. We've had a bunch of young people from Austria spend the summers with us to learn English and to do their practical training on our farm. So it's been kind of interesting. My passion is combined driving, and I like to go slow on the weekends. So that's. If anybody got any questions, I'm a lot better at answering questions than I am talking. Yes.
How about the milk plant be in relation to the farm?
The question was, where would the milk plant be in relation to the farm? And the milk plant is 12 miles from my farm. It's that was part of our analysis. Our milk hauling costs were getting out of hand. We were spending a little over 90 cents, 100, to get our milk hauled. And so this one is 12 miles from our farm. It's our group, there's 1 billion pounds of milk produced per year in our 21 farms that own it. And that's within, I think the average is 12 miles for the whole group. So we're going to really reduce our hauling costs to that. Yes. We got a mic.
Oh, just trying to get a sense of the logistics of your farm, that strip of land that you're on and between the two lakes. What is the distance of land from one lake to the other?
3 miles.
Oh, so it is that. That's pretty tight. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's an area of the Finger Lakes, and it looks just like your finger. The glaciers carved it quite a few years ago.
You mentioned yield mapping on silage.
Yes.
And most of the producers I work with and talk with, that seems to be like a pain point in actually doing that accurately. So I was curious to see what your process was for that.
It's not really that. It's pretty painless. Actually, Pioneer will do the maps for you, and you got the software. You can set it up to find the varieties for you automatically, and we have not had that much trouble with it.
How are you documenting the tonnage coming off? What's reporting the tonnage, I guess?
The tonnage is recorded on every field. That tonnage may not be perfectly accurate, but we calibrate every day. We have a scale on the farm, and we calibrate every day. So we just bought 50 acres of silage, I know, Tuesday, and we weighed 1,209 ton, and the harvester said we had 1,970 tons. So there was maybe a 25-ton difference, but it wasn't, that's pretty close, I think.
So you're running all your wagons across the scale then?
No, we don't. We don't run them all over the scale.
Just a few to calibrate?
Yep. Maybe a load a day to calibrate. But that particular farm, we bought some silage. We did weigh it all. Everybody knows everything. Here we go. We got more questions.
You talked about the manure dragline system. How do you get a little bit more in your manure system?
Excuse me?
The manure dragline system?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well, we'll set a pump on the pond and put it in the line, and then depending on where we want it to come out, we've got risers up out of the ground. Well, there's valves in the ground, and so we'll direct the manure wherever we want to, and then just hook onto it. Depending on how far it is, we may add another booster pump there.
And then the solids are back towards the barn more? Or?
The solids, the manure is separated after it leaves the digester and stay at the farm. And they're used for bedding for the cows. Yes? Wait a minute, got a question.
Since you're a member of how do you say Cayuga?
Cayuga.
Do they handle your milk marketing for you, or do you still have to worry about what kind of price you're going to get for your milk? How does that work?
It is transitioning. Right now, we're DFA members. We were Dairy Lee. We're DFA members. As of January 1, we're going to be doing that on our own. This looks serious.
I'm from Pennsylvania originally, so I kind of understand a little bit of what you're going through in New York. I'm curious as to if you looked at 15-inch rows rather than the 20, because there is some experimentation going on in 15-inch rows. The Kelmer folks are strong on that. And then in terms of your 30,000, you must be doing some things right. Are you working in terms of do you do the nutrition kind of work in terms of that output, or how do you pull that stuff off?
Well, to go to the rows, I landed on 20-inch rows because we do a lot of we do combine a lot of corn still, and so you can buy a 20-inch head. I guess you can buy 15-inch heads also. And like I said, we still have to spray maybe 10 to 20% of our corn, so I wanted at least a chance of getting down the row to be able to spray it post-emergence. And so that's how I ended up there, mainly for the corn head and the availability of equipment to deal with it. And nutritionist, that's the other thing that Cuga Marketing did quite a long time ago, is we hired a nutritionist to do our nutrition work. He has since gone on his own. He worked for us for, I don't know, probably 10 years or so, and then he went kind of on his own with our blessing, and we still use it's an independent nutritionist that does our nutrition work. But you know, there's a lot of nutritionists that walk down the road. One just handed you the mic there, but it takes really good forage, takes really good cow comfort, it takes good facilities and cow comfort and management. But it really starts with the forage.
Two questions. What was the material of the pipeline, the manure pipeline that you made? What was that made of? And number two is, what were your ties to the three gentlemen that are taking over the farm? Did you have connections with them beforehand?
The answer is to the material, the pipe, it's just SDR-21 gasketed. It comes in 20-foot lengths and you pound it together. And so it's pretty simple to work with. We use regular water main valves to direct the flow and stuff like that. You know, if I did it again, I'd probably look at the kind that glues, not glues, but the heat press it together. I'm not sure what that's called. That has more, this SDR-21 has a limited amount of cycles to it. It has like, I don't know, 40, 50,000 cycles, pressure cycles that it can go through. But the way our system is designed now, we don't have many of those pressure cycles, so that's a good thing. The people that are partners, I have no relation to them. The last one we found, I found him, I advertised for one. The younger partner there that does, he came from school, from a local school, and just came to work as a 17, 18-year-old kid, and showed the desire and showed the willingness, and he's got the smarts. And the other one was actually from a not too far away farm. He come off a farm that didn't work out for him. So I guess there's three different instances of where they came from. But you got to look for them and you got to encourage it, and I think that's it.
How many miles are you pushing the manure to the storage facility and then on out to the rest of the fields?
You know, we had some last year, we pushed it 5 miles with 3 pumps.
How many miles from the digester to the storage?
7,500 feet from the digester to the storage, and it's 220-foot elevation rise. So it takes 100 pounds just to get it there. And we've also got a water line we have a spring on the hill. Let me see if I can go back here just a minute. Right there's a spring, and we have a 4-inch water line that comes down through here, feeds the heifer barn, and we've got 100 pounds of pressure there for all the water for our cows. That comes gravity. So that makes it kind of nice. And the other reason that we really looked to pump it is because of the hill. The farm is at the bottom of a hill, and most everything else is up. You know, once we get here, we're to pretty much the top, so everything else is flat or downhill from there. Makes it easier. You can get more volume. We're pumping it up there now with just a 20-horse electric pump. It takes about 6 hours a day or so to pump it. One of the other things we do is we grow our own grain. So we grow grain that is consistent, and we grow the high vitreousness grain, and we grind it ourselves. We have our own grinder that we bin that we put it in. It electrically grinds over 24 hours. That's worked very well for us.
I hope I have a simple question here. I have a 14-year-old son that's really into farming, agriculture, but we're not farmers. My wife is from a farm, and are you guys associated with any university, or do you have an apprenticeship program for anybody that's getting into the farming business?
We don't. We, you know, like I said, we had a bunch of Austrian kids that we did about 13 summers, I guess, with Austrian kids, and that was good. That was great when we had children the same age, but now our children have gotten old, and my wife and I are getting old, and we've decided we're too old for that anymore. So, but you know, I'd encourage you to for him to get a job at a local farm. You know, look around a little bit and find some people that are looking for some. Yeah, well, you know, he's got to find that opportunity, and then, you know, you might have to push that opportunity a little bit too.
What's the population? It intimidates me to see all those lake homes. What's the population of your county, or what?
There's only about 7,000 in Skaneateles, but as you can see, the lakefront there is about $300 a foot. And so there's lots of, you know, there's lots of $1 million homes, and it's, I don't know, there's a lot of affluence. And
so where do those people have jobs for the $1 million, or are they all retirement?
No, they're not retirement. In Syracuse, there'll be people, and Welch Allen is close to us that builds the 30 miles or less, most of them. You know, it started out, they were all just summer homes, you know, for people downstate or whatever. They come up for the summer, but they've all been converted into year-round homes, where a lot of them have been.
What's your plant population in your 20-inch rows, and what's your average corn yield the last 5 years?
We've only been 20-inch rows for 2 years. 3 years ago, we had a really dry year. We weren't 20-inch rows, and we averaged about 17 ton. Last year, we were 20-inch rows. We had lots of moisture. I think we were averaging like 22 or 3 ton last year. But our population, we're still playing with that. I don't know where the population is going to end up. We're doing a lot of side-by-sides. We've got it as high as 44 right now, and it looks like wicked corn, to be honest with you. So far, what we found is the higher we push the population, the more yield we get. So, I don't know. We're a little afraid of it. It starts to get a little spindlier, and we're a little afraid of it going down. And but we're having a tremendous corn year this year, and I think our yields are going to be 7 or 8 ton this year average. But that's not average or normal. Get the younger kid behind you first. No, go ahead. Go ahead. This guy's too tough on me.
Did you work with a company to install this piping system, or was this kind of like a homegrown idea?
It was a little bit of a homegrown idea. We talked to some engineers and stuff like that, and nobody really knew a lot about it, and we ended up doing it. Turned out we ended up having to get it, when CAFO came along, then we had to get it engineered post-installation. But it went through that fine. Luckily, I had the pipe we used. And one of the things we did is we buried it, because we have a lot of tile in our ground, and the tile are 3-4 feet, and we knew we were going to go through a lot of that, getting it out across there. It's all 5 foot deep in the ground. So tile will go over top of this, or if you're putting tile in, you can stay on top of it, and thought it'd be out of harm's way better there. Okay.
in terms of your breeding program, how are you handling that? And I presume you sleep sometime during the day, or 24 hours.
Well, that's why we have the guys on the last slide there to take care of that. And they do most of the breeding and selection. We did start genomically testing all of our heifer calves a couple years ago. And we're culling the bottom 10%, breeding to sex semen, the top 30%. We've done some, you know, that's going to be a real fast changing area. I think this, with the genomic testing and genetics are really going to happen quick. But we've used top sires for a long time, but I'm not really into that. That's not my thing.
So that's not yours. Do you, if looking back over your career, would you end up doing something differently in your career if you had to do over again, or would you still go after agriculture?
Oh, I'd still go after agriculture. I was passionate about it. That's all I wanted to do was be a farmer. And I probably am not the best dairy farmer, but I'm more of business and crop type farmer. But I'm smart enough to know I'm not a dairy farmer, so I hire good people to take care of the dairy. And you know, I know more about dairy, I think, and I give myself credit for sometimes. I can suggest things, and I still walk through the barn a couple times a day. But I've gotten to a point in my life where I really, as you can tell, I don't work too hard. Anything else? Wow. Nothing. That was easy. You guys are easy.
So
Except for this guy in the front.
No more questions? All right, I just want to thank Dirk and thank his wife Karen, who's in the back corner there. It was a great opportunity for myself to sit down and go through this process with them, work on the presentation, get to know each other a little bit more. I've known Dirk working, obviously a business relationship and some other discussions, but it was really I was blessed to be able to sit down and have some good conversations with them and get to know each other a little bit more. So with that, thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Karen. And thank you guys for sitting in and asking some good questions.